Okay, so we're recording, and last week an anonymous individual came up to me and brought an interesting objection to the Bible, an interesting perspective on the Bible. And this anonymous individual who asked that I refer to him as anonymous when I refer to him in my videos, because this anonymous individual doesn't want his name in my videos, and so he will be known as anonymous, said if a person believed in the Bible, they would have to believe in a geocentric Earth. Do you guys know what a geocentric Earth is?
Something that's to do with geography.
No. No.
Something
Okay.
that's to do with Earth. No.
Yes.
It has to do with the Earth. That's right. So we have ancient models of astronomy. The Ptolemaic model of the universe, off of the Greek philosopher Ptolemy.
Oh.
This guy Ptolemy said that, God bless you, anonymous. Anonymous, God bless you. This Greek philosopher Ptolemy said that the earth was flat, and that's not necessarily what the Ptolemaic theory is about. What the Ptolemaic theory is about is that the heavens, the stars, the moon, the sun, all revolve around the earth. And the earth is the center of the universe. And the ancient church, the medieval church, tried to make it look like the Bible had no problem with the science of the day. And so for hundreds and hundreds and over 1,000 years, the church taught that the Bible has no problem with modern science. And so they preached in their sermons that the Bible has no problem with Ptolemy. However, Ptolemy was not correct. Turns out the earth revolves around the sun. We have now a heliocentric view of the galaxy. I say a heliocentric view of the galaxy because the sun is the center of the galaxy. We have no idea really where our galaxy is in the universe. Could be our galaxy is close to the center. I doubt it. I really doubt it. Could be. But we have a heliocentric view of the galaxy in modern day science. And so, is the Bible in contradiction with modern day science? Like I said, church leaders in the past created a problem by trying to make it look like the Bible was in conformity with the geocentric model of the universe that was presented by Ptolemy. It's spelled P-T, not starting with a T. I don't know why it starts with a P, but Ptolemy starts with a P. P-T. Does the Bible preach a geocentric model of the universe? Before we get there, before we look at the passage that this person, this anonymous person brought up to me, I want to take a look at 2 Peter 3:15 and 16. If you have your Bibles, turn quickly with me to 2 Peter chapter 3, verses 15 and 16.
Oh, I know what this is about.
Okay. Peter is talking about how the Lord promised his immediate return, but we might not have properly understood what our Lord meant by His immediate return. Because Peter wanted to say that God's patience means the salvation of more people. So it's in our benefit that God delay His coming, so that more people can come to a knowledge of Jesus Christ. Peter's saying, and considering that the long-suffering of our Lord is salvation, if the Lord is patient with the world, if the Lord delays His judgment with the world, that means more people can come to a knowledge of Jesus Christ. As also our beloved Paul, according to the wisdom given to him, has written to you. Paul wrote to you Corinthians. Paul wrote to you Galatians. Paul wrote to you Ephesians, the Bible. He wrote to you these things, this truth about Jesus Christ. As also in all his epistles, speaking in them of these things, in which are some things hard to understand, which untaught and unstable people twist to their own destruction, as they do also the rest of Scriptures. In the NIV, it says, in these letters some things are contained that are hard to understand, which ignorant and unstable people distort, as they do the other Scriptures, to their own destructions. I'm reading from the New King James Version. The idea is that the Bible has a lot of things that are hard to understand. If you don't think the Bible has something that's hard to understand, it's probably because you don't read the Bible. I've been reading the Bible for decades, and there are still some passages that I find impossible to get my mind around. As the years go by, God, by His grace, has increased my understanding of the Bible, and yet there are still some things that are hard to understand. Peter's saying wicked and ignorant people distort the Bible because of their ignorance, because of their lack of understanding, to try and pervert what God is saying so that it looks like what God is saying is untrue, so that it looks like what God is saying is not right, so that it looks like what God is saying is so silly that who would ever believe this?
Jim.
Is that true? Or is it just a cover for a book that's so silly, that's so stupid that nobody should ever believe it? This person brought up a passage saying that the Bible, if you believe it, teaches that the world is at the center of the universe. And if you really believe the Bible, you would have to believe in the geocentric model of the universe. If you really believe the Bible, you would really have to believe that the world is in the center of the universe. So let's take a look at that passage. Psalm 93. Let's look in our Bibles at Psalm 93. Skeptics of the Bible have loved to quote from this passage for years. Bertrand Russell and Nietzsche and others have loved to quote from this very passage. These men are about as smart as agnostics and atheists come, and so they love to take passages of the Bible like this. And let's take a look to see if what it's teaching is that the earth is at the center of the universe. Psalm 93. The Lord reigns. He is clothed with majesty. The Lord is clothed. He has girded himself with strength. Surely the world is established so that it cannot be moved. Seems pretty clear to me. Seems to me like the world cannot be moved. Might as well throw out the whole Bible. Might as well throw out the whole Christian faith, right? You know, when I read this passage last week, that's exactly what I was thinking. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking, oh my God, this anonymous person's right. The Bible's not true. I might as well quit my job as a pastor. I might as well quit coming to Joy Church every week. I might as well quit hanging out with these great kids because I'm just wasting my time. This is actually what I was thinking to myself, privately.
How could you?
And I'm thinking, you know, we had a great run, but if it's not true, I'm not going to waste my life on a lie. None of us should. None of us should waste our life on a lie. And this is God's honest truth. This is exactly what I was thinking last weekend at the barbecue. I was trying to explain it, and as my wife so delicately pointed out, you're not doing a good job of explaining it. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you. I love you. I can always count on you as my rock of support. The Lord reigns. He is clothed with majesty. The Lord is clothed. He has girded himself with strength. Let's not translate this last phrase just for a moment. Tebel balmot is what the Hebrew word. 3 Hebrew words. Tebel balmot. And from those 3 Hebrew words, we get this whole phrase. Surely the world is established so that it cannot be moved. 11 English words from the 3 Hebrew words Tebel Baal Mot. Why is there such a difference? Hebrew is an ancient language. Hebrew is a very different language from English. There are a lot of words in English like is, like the, like so, like it, like be, that don't exist in ancient Hebrew. Tebal, Baal, Mot. 3 Hebrew words. 3 big words without all these small little English words to kind of give us, in our modern day language, a clearer understanding of what is being talked about. Ancient primitive language had no small case letters. They are all uppercase letters in ancient Hebrew. Look, you've got H, you've got this letter. What's this letter? It could be an A, it could be an E, it could be an I, it could be a U, it could be a Y. This one letter could be 6 different English letters. How do we tell the difference? If you understand Hebrew, you know what it's supposed to be. R. This is like a TZ in one letter. It's like a z, z, right? Z. It's an ancient language with ancient rules and ancient understanding. How do we translate this phrase, Tebel Balmot? For the moment, let's just assume that this is correct, which it is. But there's a nuance. There's a nuance. Do you guys know what a nuance is?
No.
Okay, a nuance is where you have an understanding, but it needs to be just tweaked. Tweaked a little bit. A simple turn of phrase like, how can I explain a nuance, Sherry? You're a teacher. You've been a teacher for over a decade. How would you explain nuances to kids?
Something with a certain style.
With a certain style. to change its main course, correct? So this is an abstract concept. If you have, let's see, how to explain a nuance. Hannah, do you have any ideas how we could explain what a nuance is? I'm struggling here.
Kind of foreshadowing, I guess, in a way.
Okay, so
the nuance, it's like
it could be like foreshadowing, yeah. You know, when I think of nuance, I think more of tweaked. I think more of, okay, so Anne?
well, the Japanese characters they took the style. Wait, they took the characters from China and then remade it to their own.
They kind of remake it to their own.
It's a subtle difference in or shade of meaning, expression. Of
Okay, thank you, Hannah. A nuance is a subtle difference, a shade of meaning. So, if I say that I am the president, it sounds really powerful, right?
No.
Okay, just roll with me, please. If I say that I'm the president, it sounds really powerful. You think I'm Obama.
No.
You think, just please help me out here. If you don't help me out, we're going to be talking longer.
Okay.
But if I say, all right, I'm the president of Canada, all of a sudden, that subtle difference seems a lot more important. I said I'm the president. Oh, president of the United States, that's great, that's wonderful, that's awesome. I'm the president of Canada. Oh. That's a huge difference, right? Huge difference.
Sure.
Okay.
We'll just say that.
But let's just finish reading through this passage. The floods have lifted up, O Lord. The floods have lifted up their voice. The floods lift up their waves. The Lord on high is mightier than the noise of many waters, than the mighty waves of the sea. Your testimonies are very sure. Holiness adorns your house, O Lord, forever. Okay, first thing about this passage. Remember in the past how on several different occasions I tried to explain the difference between figurative and literal language? Oh yeah? Okay, so let me ask you a question. This is an Old Testament verse. Jesus has not yet become incarnate. Jesus has not yet gotten his body. So let me ask you the question. Does God have a body?
No.
No. So, let's start reading Psalm 93. The Lord reigns. He is clothed with majesty. Is God clothed?
No.
No. How do you be clothed with majesty? Is majesty clothing? If I came here naked, don't worry, I am clothed. I am clothed with majesty.
Not with it.
Would it work?
No.
I am clothed with power.
No.
Would it work if I was naked? No.
No.
You'd object. So how do you clothe yourself with majesty? How do you clothe with yourself with anything? You don't. It's figurative language. It's not literal language. The Lord is clothed. He has girded himself with strength. How do you, girded means clothed. How do you clothe yourself with strength? If I just came here naked and I said, I am clothed with strength, that wouldn't count. I would still go to jail for exposing myself to a bunch of minors. Right? And you'd be like, lock away the grenade. I'm going to be traumatized for life. And you would be. You would be. You'd have nightmares for decades.
Centuries.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's skip over this phrase for a moment. Tebel Balmot. Your throne is established from old. Does God have a body?
No.
No, this is pre-incarnation days. Why does he need a throne? Where would he sit in it if he doesn't have a physical manifestation of presence somewhere? Is this throne literal?
No.
Maybe.
Totally is.
Maybe. It could be literal in heaven somewhere, but is it necessarily? Does it have to be a real throne? Could it be figurative language talking for all of heaven?
Yeah.
Could be. I don't know. This is poetry. The Psalms are poetry. The Psalms are filled with figurative language. It's true concepts, right? We're truly giving away the concept that the Lord reigns. We're truly giving away the concept that the Lord is clothed with majesty. He is full of majesty. The Lord is full of strength. He is full of power. God says, let there be heavens and earth, and heavens and earth come to exist from the power of his mere words. I say words all the time, but that doesn't mean people will listen to me. It doesn't mean that just because I said something that it's true. Okay, the floods have lifted up, O Lord. The floods have lifted up their voice. Do floods have a voice? Do floods talk? Is the Bible saying that floods talk?
No.
No. But that's what it says. The Bible says the floods have voices. You know, look, the Bible is using figurative language to say that the floods are demonstrating the glory of God. The Lord on high is mightier. Mightier than the thunders of the waves. Mightier than the thunders of the sea. The Lord on high is mighty. Your testimonies are very sure. Holiness adorns your house, O Lord, forever. So let's forget God for a moment. And let's imagine that I'm a simple husband. Trying to explain to you about the glories and wonder of my wife. Oh, Sherry, she's so awesome. She's so pretty. She's clothed with beauty. She is girded with beauty. She is smart, and she is wonderful, and she is kind, and my wife is so considerate. And the second law of thermodynamics is that decay is going to creep in. But my wife is so wonderful, and my wife is so pretty. Let me ask you, what did the second law of thermodynamics, which I butchered, have anything to do with my wife?
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay. Forget my wife for a second. Forget God, forget my wife.
Wow.
Let's pretend for a moment that I'm a history teacher.
No.
Just for a moment. Just for a moment. In 1861, the Civil War started over slavery. On April 14th, 1861, Pierre Gustave Toutant Beauregard fired the opening shots of the Civil War. And Einstein discovered that E equals mc squared for the general relativity theory. The Civil War was the most bloody war in American history. Over 600,000 people died. Modern scholarship now thinks that over 700,000 people died because of the amount of civilian deaths that previous accountings were not taking into account. What did Einstein's discovery of E equals mc squared have anything to do with my discussion?
Nothing.
Nothing. Because I was doing a historical discussion. I wasn't doing a scientific discussion. Okay. Okay, I got it. We're talking about politics. We're talking about Obama. President Obama is my favorite president. President Obama is a strong man, and he is a smart man. He used to be a teacher at Harvard.
He's a lawyer.
And he was a lawyer, and he's a surfer dude. And did you know that President Obama is the 44th president of the United States?
No.
Yeah. And
Yes. We have 44.
there's an asteroid belt after Mars before Jupiter. But President Obama passed some very important legislation, and he's married to this girl, and she's named Michelle, and he's got a couple daughters, and when he became president, he got a dog. Okay, what does the asteroid belt have to do
Nothing.
with my political discussion? I'm not having a scientific discussion, right?
No.
I'm having a political discussion.
Yes.
Psalm 93, guess what? Is not talking about science. Guess what? It's talking about God.
Oh.
Alright, so let's read it again. Remembering that it's not having a scientific discussion, remembering that it's poetry, that it's filled with figurative language, language that we've talked about, let's look at Psalm 93. The Lord reigns. He is clothed with majesty. The Lord is clothed. He has girded himself with strength. Surely the world is established that it cannot be moved. It still looks to me like I got to quit my job as a pastor. Still looks to me like it's saying earth cannot be moved. Sorry guys, I enjoyed hanging out with you for all this time. About this time I was getting depressed. And I was looking for all these reasons that it's not saying what it really seems to be saying, that the world is established. It cannot be moved. I'm just thinking, maybe I was wrong. I thought I had a good case, but maybe I was wrong. And for hours I was just going through agony. And then I was thinking, you know what? Let me look in the Hebrew. Let me see if there is a nuance to the words that could explain what's going on. And I came across the phrase Tebel Bamot, which is what our whole discussion, God bless you. If there is a God, we'll discuss that in a second.
Wait, what?
Christine's all, I don't know. Is this going to be the last week we have, Pastor Jim? Stay tuned. Commercial break. No. Okay. Tebel Bamot. Tebel Bamot. What the whole phrase is about. The world is established. I really thought that my key to understanding the nuances would be in the word mot, moved. And after studying the word for hours, mot, looking at its usage, looking how it's applied throughout the Hebrew Bible, looking at how it appears in passages in Jeremiah, passages in Isaiah, passages in Genesis, I found nothing. I got nowhere. Tebel Bamot. Mot got me nowhere. Well, what about Baal? Maybe not doesn't really mean not. Turns out Baal really does mean not. Turns out it's a really good translation of the word ball. So I thought, okay, please God, if you're really up there, please let Tebel not mean world. And it meant world. Tebel really does mean world. However,
Dun, dun, dun.
dun, 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 there's a nuance.
Yeah.
There's a slight shade of meaning to the word Tebel. What do you think of when you think of world?
Earth.
Earth. You think of globe. You think of
Whoa.
the continents. Right?
I was thinking of oceans, but okay.
You think of oceans. You think of polar bears.
Language.
I think of polar bears when I think of Earth. You know, because I think, okay, hippies love the Earth. Hippies love polar bears.
Yeah.
That's the way that I think.
Weirdly.
Tebel Damot.
You there?
All right. Ta-da!
Yeah.
Tebel is primarily the inhabited part of the world. By implication, by extension, Tebel is talking about the societies of the world. It's talking about the parts of the world that are people all over the world, the Tebel. If you were a Jew, you'd refer to a Korean, you'd refer to an Englishman, you'd refer to a Chinaman as a Goyim. If you were a Jew, you were a Jew. If you were not a Jew, you were a Goyim. You were a Gentile. But what if you wanted to refer to both the Goyim and the Jewish people? What if you wanted to refer both to the house of Israel and all the nations of the earth? You would talk about, in ancient Hebrew, the Tebel, the world. Both Israel and the Gentiles is a lot of words when you could just have one word, the Tebel, to talk about Jews and Gentiles. What if you wanted to say earth in Hebrew? What word would you use? Would you use Tebel? What's the first verse of the Bible? First verse of the Bible, Genesis 1:1. Who knows it? Please. Okay. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Bereshit bara et Elohim et haaretz.
Oh.
Bereshit bara et Elohim et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The eretz. Eretz is earth, is ground, it's soil. It's what we grow our plants in. It's what the world is made of, the eretz. That's the Hebrew word for world. Is Psalm 93 saying that the eretz cannot be moved? Is Psalm 93 saying that the eretz is at the center of the universe?
No.
It's saying the Tebel. The Tebel cannot be moved. So what's this passage saying? The Lord reigns. He is clothed with majesty. The Lord is clothed. He has girded himself in strength. The world is not moved. The world's not impressed. The world will not be changed from the glory of the Lord. The world is not caring about how glorious God is. The society is not moved. The society's not changing. The glorious God in the universe is clothed with majesty. He's wonderful. He's glorious. Society doesn't care. Your throne is established, O Lord. You are from everlasting. The floods lift up their voice to your glory, God. The floods declare how wonderful you are. The Lord is mighty. The Lord is mightier than the seas. The Lord is mightier than the thunders in the sky. Your testimony is very true. Holiness adorns your house, O Lord, forever. This passage is saying, God, you are wonderful. You created the Eretz. But the Tebel, the society, the world, is not impressed by your glory. Tebel Balmot, the world is not changed from your glory. The world is not changed from the testimonies of the floods. The world's not changed from the testimonies of the thunders. The world's not changed from the strength of your throne. Is this a good translation?
No.
Yes.
Oh, what?
It's accurately translating the word Tebel. It's accurately translating Tebel as world, because that's what Tebel means. Is it nuanced properly? No. No. But is it a good translation? Absolutely. Is it a translation that's prone to misunderstanding? Is it a translation that's prone for which ignorant and unstable people could distort to their own destruction? Absolutely. Famous agnostic, famous atheist Bertrand Russell, famous agnostic, famous atheist Friedrich Nietzsche twisted and perverted this very word because they had no idea what the Hebrew was, because they didn't care. They just wanted to superficially glance at the Bible and say, look, it's silly, look, I shouldn't believe it. And I can understand that. I can understand that. You know, when I don't want to believe something, there's always the temptation for me to just glance at the Quran or glance at the Hindu Vedas and say, look, it's silly, look, they're stupid, and disbelieve it. It's a lot harder to take a serious look at the sutras and say, maybe Buddha was onto something here. And as a Christian pastor, I've had the privilege of having dialogues with Muslims. I've had the privilege of having dialogues with Hindus. I've had the privilege of having dialogues with Buddhists. In my early years, in my immature years, it was easy for me to just glance at the sacred books of another person and say, this is stupid. It's a lot harder for me as an intellectually sophisticated man to try and honestly, rationally, seriously deal with the deeply treasured and deeply held beliefs of another person. I don't believe in other religions, don't get me wrong. I believe that Christianity is the one true faith. I believe, as we preach, that Jesus is the door. Again, this is not Jesus. If you didn't remember that lesson, Jesus is not a door. If you didn't remember, if you weren't here that week, that's a figurative word, figurative language. But to honestly deal with something is a lot harder intellectually because it can mess with you. And you can think, well, maybe there is something to this. And unfortunately, Nietzsche died not knowing the truth. Unfortunately, Bertrand Russell died not knowing the truth about Christianity. But they know about the truth of Christianity now because it's unavoidable. Because whether we believe in it or not, Jesus is still going to be true. Whether we understand it or not, Jesus is still real. It's just like for thousands of years, humans had no understanding about gravity. And yet, ta-da, gravity still worked. If you jumped off a cliff, I don't believe in gravity. Ah! Gravity would still work. A person can say, I don't believe in Jesus. Jesus is still going to be real. Doesn't matter what you believe, Jesus is still going to be real. A person can try and say, if you believe in the Bible, you have to believe that the world is at the center of the universe. Sure. The table is not moved by God. But the Bible does not teach ever that the eretz, that the earth is at the center of the universe. It's a lot harder to wrestle with objections when you want to take a serious, mindful, and intellectual approach with whatever you're trying to object to. And unfortunately, as Peter said, the Bible contains many things that are hard to understand, which ignorant and unstable people distort, as they do the other scriptures, to their own destruction. There are no failings in the Bible. Like I've said before, there are no failings in the Bible. There are only failings in our ability to understand the Bible. There are no contradictions in the Bible. There are no scientific errors in the Bible. There are no historical errors in the Bible. The Bible contains the truth about God. Are there lies in the Bible? Yes. But they're said by evil people in the Bible. Is it true that what they said is a lie? Yeah. Is the Bible endorsing that lie? No.
Yay.
Are there errors in the Bible? Yes. A lot of people say a lot of wrong things, and those conversations are recorded accurately in the Bible. Are there scientific errors in the Bible? Yeah. Is the Bible endorsing those scientific errors as literal truths? When it says that the sun rises and the sun sets, does the sun rise and the sun set?
No.
No. It's using common, ordinary, everyday language. Is the Bible making a scientific proclamation that the sun rises and the sun sets? No. It's just using common, ordinary, everyday language, the way we all do, in order to describe the most wonderful events in history. That God is real, and that God is interacting with humankind. Does the Bible use phrases that are flatly not true? Sure, absolutely. The voices of the waves do not exist. Waves do not talk. In case you guys didn't know this. You don't go to the beach and the waves don't say, Jesus, Jesus. And yet, the power of the waves, the thundercaps of the waves, give clear testimony about the glory and strength and power and majesty of Almighty God. So be very careful if someone comes up to you and says there are errors in the Bible, because they are. They're there. But don't distort the Bible, because the Bible records many errors that people say, even though it's not saying that what those people are saying is true. You see that a lot in the book of Job. Whenever Job's talking with his three friends are constantly saying things that aren't true. They're saying things that aren't true about God. They're saying things that aren't true about society. They're saying things that aren't true about Job. They're saying things that aren't true about anything. Yet the Bible accurately records the way those conversations happen. The Bible's not endorsing what those people say all the time. The Bible's accurately recording the way God interacted with mankind in history. And that means that it uses a lot of imprecise language. That means that the Bible uses a lot of scientific inaccuracies in order to figuratively describe the glory of God. That means that the Bible is full of apparent contradictions because they're trying to talk about two different aspects of the glory of God. For example, famous one. The Bible talks about how God is love, and so He died for the sins of the world, so that we who believe in Him can have salvation. But the Bible also says that there's a hell. So how can a loving God send people to hell? It's because the Bible says God is just. There's not a contradiction. There's just two different aspects about God's character. God is perfect. He is perfectly just. He is perfectly loving. For those to whom accept God's love, He extends grace. He extends mercy. To those who reject God's grace, He extends perfect justice. And you will get what you deserve. And you will get what you have coming to you. There are no contradictions in the Bible. There are no errors in the Bible. There are only failings in our ability to understand the Bible. There are only failings in our ability to understand the difference between what the Bible is accurately recording about what people said and what the Bible is trying to communicate to us as doctrine, what the Bible is trying to communicate to us as the nature of reality. These are important principles to keep in mind when we look at the Bible passage. Throughout this whole week, it's been my week of contradictions. I've had people coming up to me and say, what about this passage? What about that passage? What about when God says this and the prophet says this? And every time I said, okay, let's look at the principles. Let's look at the principles. Are any of the principles that we just talked about being violated by either passage? No. And you just see that glorious clarity come in the minds of believers who are struggling with their ability to understand the Bible. It is the greatest privilege of my life to be a pastor. When I first came here at Joy Church, you guys were so happy to have me. But you know what? Nobody was happier to have me here than me. Nobody, because there is no greater privilege, there is no greater responsibility than teaching people about the true and living God. There is no greater honor that I've had in my life than sharing with people about the truth of Jesus Christ. I know I'm way over time, and I apologize if I've been ever boring. I don't think I'm ever boring. Okay, sometimes, a lot of the times I do think I'm boring. But what I'm saying is important because it's about God. And because these things are true, whether we believe them or not, and so that it's important that we are on the side of truth. If we choose to reject God, God is still going to exist. God is still going to be real. And so, Needless to say, after I came to this glorious understanding of what Tabel meant, I sent an anonymous person a flurry of emails, including my sermon notes for today. And you got to read my sermon notes in their entirety. And so just as an interesting aside, in the past you guys have said that I should memorize my sermons before I came here. You have word for word exactly what I was going to preach on today. And I want to ask you if you think that I'm dependent on this sheet.
It was too long, so I didn't read it.
You didn't read it.
It was too long.
Dude, it was like one paragraph. It was like one long paragraph. You had my... Okay, that's cool. That's cool. We really ought to go to lunch. Anybody who wants to look at it can look at it.
I'll take it.
Great. But I apologize for going way over time. Let's close in a word of prayer and then you can turn.